I never imagined my 10th wedding anniversary dinner would end with my husband's ex-wife grabbing his 8-year-old daughter's arm while the entire restaurant stopped eating to watch. But that's exactly what happened. And the truth that little girl revealed, right there between the candlelit tables and the sound of forks dropping, destroyed years of manipulation in a single sentence. My name is Emily Carter, and I've spent 4 years trying to be the steady one, the calm one, the woman who keeps peace in a blended family that rarely wanted peace. I married Daniel, a hardworking IT consultant with the sweetest heart and the worst habit of avoiding conflict, especially when it came to his ex-wife. And then there's Olivia, his daughter, my stepdaughter, the child who changed everything for me. The little girl with big hazel eyes, a nervous smile, and the sharpest memory of any kid I've ever met. But before Olivia spoke up that night, before she looked her mother in the eye and asked, "Should I tell Daddy what you and Grandma planned in the car?" I recorded it too. I thought the biggest shock of the evening would simply be the fact that Vanessa Hale, Daniel's ex, showed up at our anniversary dinner at all. Let me back up. In the first 10 seconds of this story, you need to understand who walked into that restaurant and why my heart nearly stopped beating. Vanessa wasn't just an ex-wife. She was a storm that never really passed. Every time Daniel and I felt like our marriage was finally on solid ground, Vanessa would find a way to shake it. A late-night text about co-parenting questions. A sudden argument about Olivia's schedule that pushed Daniel into hours of apologizing for things he didn't even do, or worse, subtle remarks that were meant to stab me, disguised as concern for Olivia. And then there was Margaret, my mother-in-law. A woman who treated Vanessa like the daughter she believed she deserved. A woman who had never accepted me, not even for a moment. She wasn't outwardly cruel. She was quietly dismissive, the kind of person who smiled politely while holding a knife behind her back. Margaret adored Vanessa. She worshipped her even. To her, Vanessa was family. I was the outsider. So when Vanessa walked into our anniversary dinner and Margaret stood up to hug her, I wasn't shocked. I was devastated. I was embarrassed, and I was furious. But none of that mattered once Olivia stood up. See, Olivia isn't the kind of child who interrupts adults. She never raises her voice. She never tries to make herself the center of attention. She never wants to disappoint anyone, especially her father. She has lived her entire young life tiptoeing around conflict that isn't her fault. That's why when I heard her tiny chair scrape against the restaurant floor, and I saw her slowly stand with her backpack still on her shoulders, my stomach tightened. "Mom," she said, staring directly at Vanessa, "should I tell Daddy what you and Grandma planned in the car?" The entire restaurant went silent. Even the couple celebrating a birthday 3 tables over froze with their cake forks in midair. "You recorded it?" Vanessa choked out, her confidence cracking like thin glass. She grabbed Olivia's arm so quickly that several diners gasped. And Daniel, my husband, the man who always tried to keep everyone calm, finally shouted her name in a voice that shook the wine glasses. But before we get there, you need to know the versions of these people standing at that table in the first 10 seconds of the story. You need to understand the roles they played in my life. I was the wife who tried. Daniel was the man caught between 2 worlds. Vanessa was the ghost of his past who refused to stay buried. Margaret was the mother who wanted her perfect picture of family back. And Olivia was the little girl forced to choose between telling the truth and protecting the very people who were hurting her. So when she stood up and asked that question, the question that cracked open every lie and plan they schemed, I realized this dinner wasn't just an anniversary celebration. It was the moment everything broke, and the moment everything finally began to rebuild. And that's where this story really starts. If I'm honest, the night started beautifully. For once, life felt calm, almost predictable. I remember looking at myself in the mirror before we left the house, smoothing the soft navy dress Daniel bought me for Mother's Day and thinking, maybe things are finally settling down. It was the first time in months I allowed myself to breathe without waiting for the next crisis. Daniel had made reservations at Bell'Antonio's, our favorite little Italian restaurant tucked into a cozy corner of downtown Charlotte. The kind of place with dim amber lighting, brick walls, white tablecloths, and the smell of handmade pasta that wraps around you like a warm blanket the moment you walk in. We first ate there on our second date, long before the messy parts of blending a family revealed themselves. Back then, everything felt simple. Love felt easy. We left the house just before 6. Olivia was staying with Margaret for the afternoon, and the plan was for Daniel to pick her up after dessert. He seemed relaxed as he drove, music low, hand resting on mine, the way he always did when he wanted me to feel loved. He talked about work, plans for summer vacation, and how proud he was of the little world we were building. 10 years, he said, smiling. Feels strange. It went fast. Good fast or bad fast? I teased. Good. The kind where you wake up and don't feel alone. He kissed my hand gently. I know blending a family hasn't been easy, Em, but you've given me and Olivia something steady, something real. Those words warmed me in a way I didn't realize I needed, because beneath every peaceful moment in our home, there was always a shadow, Vanessa Hale, the ex-wife who treated co-parenting like a battleground and me like an uninvited stranger in her old life. Still, I brushed the thought aside. Tonight was about us. When we stepped into the restaurant, a hostess led us to a corner booth with flickering candles and a small handwritten card Daniel had dropped off earlier. Inside, it was a simple message. You're my real beginning. Thank you for choosing us. I felt my throat tighten. Moments like these were why I stayed, why I fought so hard to keep our little family safe. We ordered drinks, just a glass of red wine for me and sparkling water with lime for Daniel because he always drove. We talked about Olivia, laughing about how she'd recently informed us that 3rd grade is basically middle school, but with crayons. Daniel shook his head like any amused father would. She tries so hard to be older than she is, he said, but she's still my baby girl. There were moments where Daniel would soften in ways he didn't even realize, moments that showed how deeply he loved his daughter. It was the number one reason I promised myself I would never compete with Vanessa where motherhood was concerned. I didn't want Olivia torn apart. I never wanted her to feel like she was choosing between 2 homes or 2 women. I just wanted to be someone safe for her. Hearing Daniel talk about her, he reminded me of the first day I met Olivia at a park. She was 4 then, holding a stuffed yellow rabbit by the ears, watching Daniel nervously as he introduced me. This is Emily, he said gently. She's my friend. Olivia studied me with cautious eyes, not hostile, just careful. And then, after about 15 seconds of silence, she nodded and handed me her rabbit. That was Olivia, quiet but perceptive, slow to trust but steady once she did. Back at the restaurant, our waiter delivered warm bread and oil, and Daniel lifted his glass for a toast. His eyes were soft, to 10 years, and to the woman who made me believe love could be peaceful. I leaned in, touched by the sincerity in his voice. To us, I whispered. And then, like a gust of cold air blowing through a warm room, I saw her, a familiar silhouette in the entranceway, arms crossed, lips curved in a smug half-smile, the unmistakable presence of a woman who thrived on stirring chaos, Vanessa. Before my mind could even process why she was there, another figure stepped forward behind her, Margaret, my mother-in-law, smiling as if the sun had finally come out. I felt my heart drop. A cold, silent warning ran through my chest. This wasn't an accident. Vanessa didn't show up places by coincidence. And Margaret wasn't with her by accident either. Something was coming. Something planned. Something that would unravel the calm I'd fought so hard to build. Daniel's smile faded as he followed my gaze. His shoulders stiffened. He whispered my name softly, unsure, hesitant. But it was too late. I already knew. Peace never lasts long in a family built on old wounds, and the night was just beginning. Vanessa didn't walk toward our table. She paraded. Her heels clicked across the tile floor like she wanted every single person in that restaurant to know she'd arrived. She wore a fitted white dress, the kind someone might choose when they want to be mistaken for a bride. Her hair was curled to perfection, and she held her chin high like she was floating above all of us, immune to consequence. Margaret followed behind her with the excitement of a woman arriving at a surprise party she planned herself. She wasn't even pretending to hide it. She waved at Daniel like a proud mother seeing her son on stage. I felt Daniel tense beside me, but he forced a smile, his default reaction to conflict, even when he was terrified of what might come next. "Don't react," he whispered to me. "Let's just see what they want." But I already knew. Vanessa never showed up anywhere without a motive. She didn't breathe without an angle. She didn't even wait to be invited to the table. She stepped right into our intimate corner booth, arms crossed, eyes locked on me. "Well," she said brightly, "isn't this sweet?" Daniel rubbed his forehead. "Vanessa, what are you doing here?" She placed a hand on her hip. "Oh, relax. I'm not here to cause trouble." I almost laughed. That was the sentence Vanessa used right before she caused trouble. Margaret stepped to Daniel's side, her voice syrupy sweet. "Don't be rude, Daniel. She just wanted to stop by and congratulate you both." That was a lie, and everyone at the table knew it. Vanessa tilted her head at me, her eyes scanning me top to bottom. "You look nice, Emily, really, but I hope you didn't get too comfortable." Daniel straightened. "Enough. It's our anniversary. You need to leave." But Vanessa wasn't leaving. She leaned closer to me and said with a practiced softness meant to mimic sincerity, "He still loves me. You know that, right? You're just keeping the spot warm." My heart stopped for half a second, though I didn't let her see me flinch. I'd dealt with her digs before, comments about how she and Daniel had real history, how I'd never understand certain memories, how their connection was deeper than paperwork. But saying it here, on this night, felt like a direct attack. Margaret placed a hand on Daniel's arm. "Vanessa just wants to talk. Be nice, both of you." The hypocrisy was stunning. Margaret had never once asked Vanessa to be nice to me, not in 4 years. I spoke as calmly as I could. "Vanessa, please leave. This is inappropriate." Vanessa smirked. "Oh, please, Daniel doesn't mind me being here. Right, Dan?" Daniel's voice tightened. "Stop calling me that, and stop twisting everything." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "You didn't mind last week when you called me." Daniel's face flushed. "It was about Olivia's school meeting." "Sure it was." Vanessa flicked her hair back. "Funny how you're suddenly so defensive." I could feel the diners around us pretending not to stare. The tension was thick, electric, suffocating. I reached for Daniel's hand under the table, needing some sign that he was with me. He squeezed my fingers gently, but I felt the tremble in his grip. Meanwhile, Margaret was watching me the way a cat watches a bird it wants to pounce on. "Emily, you shouldn't overreact. Vanessa has every right to be here." "No, Mom," Daniel snapped. "She doesn't." The word Mom slipped out of him with a bite I rarely heard. Even Margaret blinked at it. Vanessa took a step closer to Daniel, lowering her voice but not enough for me to miss it. "You remember what we talked about, right? About giving things another try once we fix the complications?" Daniel stepped back, horrified. "Vanessa, stop lying." "Is it a lie?" she asked, her eyes flicking between us. I felt a cold wave rush through my chest, not because I believed her, but because she was willing to say anything to break us. I steadied my breathing. "Daniel, don't engage her. She wants a reaction." Vanessa laughed under her breath. "Oh, honey, you're not married to him, you're renting him." Margaret didn't correct her. She didn't even blink. And then, as if the night wasn't twisted enough, the waiter arrived with our food, paused, looked at Vanessa, and asked gently, "Should I get you a chair, ma'am?" Vanessa smiled like she belonged there. "Yes, please." That was when I saw the first crack in Daniel's composure. His voice broke into a louder, sharp tone I'd never heard at a dinner table. "No, she's not sitting." The entire restaurant went silent, and that was the moment Olivia, sitting quietly beside Margaret, set down the crayons she had been coloring with and looked up at the table. Her eyes moved from her mother to her father, then to me. Something inside that child had changed. I could see it in the way she inhaled deeply before speaking. "Daddy," she whispered, "can I say something?" It was the sound of a truth about to explode, and none of us were ready for what came next. When Olivia whispered, "Daddy, can I say something?" the entire table shifted. The air tightened, the background chatter faded, and Daniel's attention snapped away from Vanessa's manipulative smirk. His whole posture softened in an instant, the way it always did when his daughter spoke. He crouched slightly to meet her eyes. "Of course, sweetheart, what is it?" But before Olivia could open her mouth, Vanessa swooped in like a hawk. "No, Olivia, sit down. This is grown-up conversation." Her tone was sharp, too sharp, the kind that makes a child shrink. But Olivia didn't shrink. She stiffened. Her fingers curled into the edge of the table, and her little jaw tightened, the way it did when she was scared but determined not to cry. Daniel frowned. "Vanessa, let her talk." "She doesn't need to be involved in this," Vanessa snapped. "And you," she pointed at me, "you've poisoned her against me." "I didn't do anything to her," I cut in. "Stop blaming me for choices you made." Margaret gasped as if I'd slapped someone. "Emily, that's enough. Vanessa is her mother." "And I'm not trying to replace her," I replied calmly. "But I'm also not going to let her silence Olivia." Margaret turned to Olivia, her voice too soft to be genuine. "Sweetheart, your mommy and daddy are talking. Why don't you color some more?" "I don't want to color," Olivia whispered. That's when I realized this wasn't a normal moment for her. This was a breaking point. Olivia looked at Daniel again, her eyes glistening. "Daddy, please, I need to say it." Daniel moved to the edge of his seat. "Okay, go ahead." Vanessa growled under her breath and leaned forward. "Olivia, sit down right now." But Olivia didn't move. Slowly, quietly, she pushed back her chair and stood. Her hands trembled as she lifted the small pink and purple backpack she'd had with her all day, covered in glittery stars and a keychain shaped like a dolphin. She held it against her chest like a shield. "Mama," she said, turning to Vanessa, "should I tell Daddy what you and Grandma planned in the car?" The restaurant fell completely silent. Vanessa blinked rapidly. "What are you talking about? Sit down." "I was listening," Olivia said, her voice louder now but still soft and shaky. "You didn't know I was awake." Daniel froze. "Listening to what?" Margaret stepped in fast, almost too fast. "She's confused, Daniel. Children misunderstand things all the time." "No, I didn't," Olivia said, her voice strengthening. "I heard everything." Vanessa's lips tightened. She inhaled sharply, trying to mask her panic. "Olivia, come here." But Olivia took a step back, then another. She stood closer to me now, and I could feel her fear vibrating off her small body. She wasn't trying to hurt her mother. She wasn't trying to expose anyone. She was a child who had been pushed too far. Daniel stared between Vanessa and Margaret. What did she hear? Vanessa's eyes darted toward Margaret. In that brief moment of eye contact, something unspoken passed between them. A shared secret, a plan unraveling. I watched Daniel's face change as he realized it too. His confusion turned into suspicion, and his suspicion turned into dread. "I recorded it," Olivia said, her voice trembling. She unzipped the front pocket of her backpack and pulled out a tiny lavender-colored kid's voice recorder. Because I was scared. Margaret's face went white. Vanessa's posture snapped rigid. Daniel looked like someone had punched the air out of him. "Recorded what?" he asked, barely able to speak. "That you were going to pretend Emily was mean to me," Olivia said, voice cracking, "so Daddy would let me live with you again." My heart broke as the words came out of her tiny mouth. "And Grandma said she would tell Daddy she saw Emily yelling at me in the parking lot," Olivia continued, tears sliding down her cheeks. "But you told her it didn't happen, and Grandma said it didn't matter." The restaurant gasped collectively. Even strangers knew what they were witnessing was wrong. Vanessa lunged forward, trying to grab the recorder. "Give that to me right now. You don't know what you're talking about." Daniel stepped between them so fast his chair nearly toppled. "Don't touch her." And for the first time in our marriage, I saw raw rage in his eyes. Margaret shook her head rapidly. "She misunderstood. Daniel, she misunderstood." But Olivia wasn't done. "Mama," she whispered, her voice breaking with betrayal. "Why did you say I had to help you or you'd cry in front of Daddy? Why did you say that?" Vanessa's face collapsed. Daniel's world tilted. And I realized right then that everything in our family had just shifted. Olivia had spoken. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same again. The moment Olivia finished speaking, the restaurant transformed. The soft hum of conversations, the clinking of glasses, the background music, all of it vanished under the weight of her tiny, trembling voice. It was like the whole room collectively held its breath, waiting to see what the adults at our table would do, or fail to do. Vanessa's reaction came first. She lunged forward so fast her chair screeched against the floor, the sound slicing through the silence. Her hand shot out and grabbed Olivia's arm, fingers digging into her small wrist. "Give me that recorder," she hissed, her voice sharp and shaking. "Now!" Olivia winced, but she held on to the little lavender device with both hands, pressing it against her chest as if it were a lifeline. Her eyes widened, not in fear, but in something far deeper. Betrayal. She flinched, not at the grip, but at the realization that her mother's first instinct was to silence her. I didn't think. My body moved before my mind did. "Let go of her!" I shouted, my voice echoing across the restaurant louder than I intended. Chairs turned. People stared. Someone gasped. A woman near the bar stood halfway out of her seat. Daniel reacted just a second behind me, but when he moved like a father who had snapped out of years of tiptoeing. He pulled Vanessa's hand off Olivia's arm with such force that Vanessa stumbled backward, nearly falling into the empty chair the waiter had offered earlier. "Don't you ever grab her like that again," Daniel said. His voice wasn't loud, but it was deep, steady, and terrifyingly controlled. A voice I had never heard from him, not even once in all the years we'd been together. Vanessa looked between him and the recorder, her breath coming in short bursts. "She's lying, Daniel. She's making this up. She doesn't understand what she heard." "I understand," Olivia whispered, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I understood everything." Margaret finally found her voice, though it was shaky and desperate. "Daniel, she's confused. She must have misheard. Kids misinterpret things all the time." But Olivia faced her grandmother with a heartbreakingly calm expression. "You told Mommy to make Daddy think Emily was mean to me," she said softly, "because you don't like Emily. You said she took your son from you." The words hit Margaret like a physical blow. She pressed a hand to her chest as though she needed support just to keep standing. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. Daniel turned to his mother. "Is that true?" Margaret swallowed. "Daniel, I was emotional. I didn't mean—" "You planned to lie to me?" Daniel's voice cracked, anger and heartbreak battling inside him. "I didn't. She misunderstood." "Mom," he said sharply, "stop." Vanessa, realizing Margaret had failed to shift the blame, spun toward Olivia again. "You little brat," she snapped. "You don't get to ruin everything because you want attention." That was it. Something in Daniel broke. "Get out," he said, stepping between Vanessa and Olivia again. Vanessa froze. "What?" "Get out." He didn't raise his voice, but the command sent chills through every person within earshot. Vanessa's eyes widened as if she'd just realized this time she wouldn't talk her way out of it. "Daniel, you can't just kick me out. I'm her mother." "And you tried to use her as a weapon," he said. "You involved her in lies, manipulation, games. She's 8 years old, Vanessa." Vanessa's face twisted in panic. "Fine, play the victim, but you don't know what she heard. She's lying. She's always been dramatic," Daniel snapped. "She's a child," and she told the truth. He turned to the manager, who had been standing nearby with 2 other staff members, unsure whether to intervene. "Call security," Daniel said. "She needs to leave." Vanessa's mouth fell open. "Daniel, you can't be serious." Her voice began to rise, frantic, cracking at the edges. "You're choosing her?" She pointed at me. "Over me? Over your own mother? Over everything we had?" Daniel didn't answer. He didn't need to. Because while she was yelling, Olivia walked backward until she reached my side. She wrapped her small hand around mine without looking at me, just seeking safety, seeking grounding. I leaned down and whispered, "You're okay. I'm right here." Vanessa saw it, and she absolutely unraveled. She lunged again, trying to snatch the recorder from Olivia's hand, but this time the manager stepped between them, holding out an arm. "Ma'am, you need to calm down." "I'm taking my daughter," Vanessa screamed, grabbing wildly at the air. But Olivia stepped behind me, small body trembling, and said in a barely audible voice, "I don't want to go with you." The entire restaurant fell into a stunned hush. Vanessa stumbled backward as if those words had slapped her. Her face twisted with a mixture of shock and fury she couldn't mask. Security arrived. She struggled at first, her voice climbing into incoherent accusations. But when she realized no one, not even Margaret, was defending her, she went quiet. Too quiet. They escorted her out the front door, her heels clicking like a fading threat. Margaret followed her, calling her name, but Vanessa didn't look back. Not once. When the doors closed, Daniel sank into his chair, burying his face in his hands. Olivia crawled into my lap and sobbed into my shoulder. And in that moment, the truth lay bare. The family we thought we had was an illusion. But the family we were meant to become had just been born from the ashes of that moment. When the restaurant doors finally closed behind Vanessa and Margaret, it felt as if the entire room exhaled at once. Waiters quietly returned to their stations. Diners picked up their utensils again with awkward glances, and the warm glow of candlelight flickered over our table. Like it, too, was trying to recover from the chaos, but all I could focus on was the child trembling in my arms. Olivia clung to me with both hands, her small fingers twisted into the fabric of my dress. She didn't sob loudly. She didn't gasp for air. She cried the way heartbroken children cry, silently with tears that soaked straight through to your bones. I held her close, one hand on her back, the other smoothing her hair, whispering, "You're safe, sweet girl, you're safe." Daniel sat across from us, his elbows on the table, his face buried in his hands. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He looked like a man who had just watched everything he ever believed about the two people he trusted most, his ex-wife and his mother, collapse in front of him. After a long stretch of silence, he finally lifted his head. His eyes were red. Not from anger, though he had every right to be furious, but from heartbreak. From disappointment so deep it pulled at the corners of his mouth and made his shoulders slump. "Emily," he said quietly, "I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know they were planning anything." "I know," I whispered back. "I believe you." He turned to Olivia next. She looked up, hiccuping softly, her face wet with tears. Daniel reached across the table and took her hand with such gentleness that even the waiter paused behind him. "Olivia," he said, his voice cracking, "I'm so sorry, baby. I never thought anyone would put you in the middle like that." She sniffled. "I didn't want to tell. I just didn't want them to fight anymore. I didn't want to lie." "You did the bravest thing you've ever done," he told her, pulling his chair around to sit beside her instead of across from her. "You protected yourself, and you told the truth. That's what good people do." Olivia leaned into his chest and he wrapped both arms around her, kissing the top of her head. A waiter approached hesitantly. "Would you like to move to a more private room? Or maybe I can box everything up for you?" Daniel nodded without looking up. "Please, we'll take it to go." While the waiter gathered our untouched entrees, the three of us sat in a small island of quiet. Every emotion, anger, fear, confusion, settled into a heavy stillness that none of us tried to escape. When we finally stepped out into the cool night air, the tension of the restaurant evaporated, replaced by a stillness that felt strangely cleansing. Daniel unlocked the car and opened the back door for Olivia. Before climbing in, she reached out and took my hand. "Emily?" she whispered. "Yes, sweetheart? Are you mad at me?" The question broke something inside me. I crouched down and cupped her face gently. "No, I'm proud of you. You were honest, and you were brave, and you told the truth even when it was scary." Olivia blinked slowly. "I didn't want anyone to get hurt." "I know," I said, "and that's what makes your heart so good." She nodded, climbing into her seat, clutching the little recorder against her chest. Once she was buckled in, Daniel closed the door, turned to me, and pulled me into a tight embrace. His voice was low, worn, and earnest against my ear. "I'm done protecting people who hurt us," he said. "I'm done pretending everything is fine." His words weren't loud, but they landed like a vow. That night didn't end with dessert or candlelight or anniversary toasts. It ended with Daniel sitting at our kitchen table long after Olivia had fallen asleep, listening to the recording with shaking hands. Every damaging word, every manipulative sentence, every cruel plan whispered between Vanessa and Margaret. When the recording ended, he closed his eyes and took a long breath, one filled not with defeat, but with clarity. The next morning, he contacted his lawyer. He filed for full custody of Olivia, explaining that Vanessa had intentionally involved their daughter in a fabricated accusation to manipulate the parenting arrangement. His lawyer didn't hesitate. He'd seen cases like this before. But what made this one rare was the courage of the child who had spoken up. That same week, Daniel told his mother he needed space, real space. "Until you're willing to admit what you did and get help," he said, "I can't have you around Olivia or Emily." Margaret cried. She begged. She tried to shift blame, but Daniel didn't bend. For the first time in years, he chose truth over guilt, honesty over obligation. And Olivia, sweet, brave, heart-heavy Olivia, slept through the night. No nightmares, no creeping into our room, no fear that someone was plotting something she didn't understand. She was safe. We were safe. Emily closes the story with this truth. In the ashes of that awful night, our family didn't break. It rebuilt, not because the lies were exposed, but because an 8-year-old girl chose courage over silence. And sometimes that's all it takes to change everything. Thank you for staying with me through this emotional story. If there's one thing I hope you take away from tonight, it's this. Families are not built on perfection. They're built on truth, on courage, and sometimes on the bravery of a child who refuses to stay silent. Olivia didn't just expose a plan meant to tear our home apart. She reminded us what honesty looks like. She showed us that love isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about facing them together. And because of her, because of that tiny lavender recorder she held with shaking hands, our family walked out of a nightmare and into a new beginning. If this story moved you, if it made you think, or if it made you feel something real, then please do me a favor. Like this video to help more people find it. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Comment below and tell me what part hit you the hardest. I read every single one. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next story. Your support means everything. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.